Welcome to Tiger Talk, your source for information about your hometown and surrounding area. Tiger Talk is brought to you by...
And Tiger Talk brought to you by Whistle Stop Donuts, Stray Beans Coffee House, Lower Main in Princeton, Hancock's Neighborhood Market, on Commerce Street in Katie's, delicious homemade goodness, and Perry's Floors and More. And at 8:04, welcome to Tiger Talk here on your hometown radio station, WPKY. And it is our Wednesday extension program. Have Shane Bogle in studio. Shane is the agent for Agriculture and Natural Resources. And Shane, you just heard the weather forecast.
Yes.
It's that time.
It is.
It looks like it's going to freeze.
I think it's coming, Ty. But in a grand scheme of things, especially for our livestock producers, a full hard freeze is going to be better than a light freeze.
Yeah, and this one looks like it might just be light. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. The temperatures are going to be low enough to.
I don't know. You think it will be?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So the problem
Tell us about it.
The problem, Ty, is this time of year after we've had a drought that we've had this summer. What's the main thing you see growing in pastures right now? Johnson grass.
Yeah,
Johnson grass. Grazing certain forages and weeds this time of year can have a toxin in called prussic acid. A light freeze or drought-damaged plants, basically the tissue is kind of stressed and ruptured from either the light freeze or the drought and releases this toxin, and it's not very good on our cattle.
No. Well, what kind of what can it do to cattle?
Well, Johnson grass, wild cherry, Sudan grasses, a lot of our more warm season type grasses that are kind of nitrogen hogs that hold a lot of nitrogen have possibilities to do that. And the soils are deficient in phosphorus or potassium or high levels of nitrogen. And in a drought year, Ty, if we have fertilized early in the spring and then water shut off, that is stored in those plants. Leaves, new shoots, and tillers have high levels of what we call prussic acid. And large amounts of this, if consumed, I have seen it before, a big clump of Johnson grass around a light pole, and the cow was dead, still with his head in the clump of Johnson grass around the light pole, the only Johnson grass in the field. But what happens, Ty, is it messes with the oxygen utilization in the blood, and they actually die from respiratory paralysis.
Wow.
So
they just can't breathe.
They just cannot breathe. And symptoms appear very quickly after consumption. And these symptoms may include cherry red-colored blood. And that's one way that we can tell is we bleed an animal if they're showing symptoms. Be staggering, labored breathing, spasms, foaming at the mouth, falling, just not typical cow behavior. Immediate treatment by a veterinarian is needed. And needs to be called very, very quickly.
I was just going to ask you, I mean, is there a way to reverse it?
There is, and that I'm going to leave that to the vets. There's multiple things that they can do there, but having that vet-client relationship very important in an instance like that. So, Ty, some of the good news is that if we cut that for hay, that prussic acid can decrease over time. So when we have a freeze coming, and what we had a week ago, we said, we sent out Facebook messages. There's like, folks, if you've got this in your pastures, got a lot of Johnson grass, pull them off. We need a 7 to 10 day withdrawal just to be on the safe side.
So it's mainly with the Johnson grass?
And that is the main thing that's out there right now, Ty. After a drought year, the pastures was low. Johnson grass is really growing, and it's
high.
It's head high in some places. So putting that up in a hay form will decrease that over time, just the atmosphere dissipates, and a lot of it, especially if it's put up in a silage form, so in a haylage and it's wrapped up, it goes a whole lot quicker and more of it goes away. So we recommend keeping those off 7 to 10 days, keep an animal off a week to 10 days off of after a non-killing frost. I really think, Ty, that on Saturday
it's going to be down in the low 30s.
Yeah, if if the rain's not here, you said a while ago that you didn't know how that was going to work with frost, with cloudy, overcast, and all that. We'll just have to see there. So do not graze after a killing frost for 72 hours. So even if we do get this heavy frost, we're still going to recommend producers get their cows off that. If there is a lot out there, feed them some stored forage that you have until that 72-hour window. Do not graze at night when frost is likely. And, you know, a lot of times folks just don't think about it. There's not enough out there. The cows have got enough other food, but if they're hungry,
they're going to eat it.
They're going to eat it. Johnson grass is candy to livestock. So delay feeding silage if that has been put up 6 to 8 weeks to make that heat that the silage process goes through to dissipate that out. So for livestock producers, I remember my dad used to say he always looked forward to the first snowfall of the season, but knowing what a pain in the butt it was going to be the next morning dealing with livestock. It's,
and that is
weather.
tough. It's I mean, that's the time when lots of problems arise with our cattle, or potentially could arise, and so you got to be on top of things.
That's correct. It's also a good time. Fall of the year is here. We've got cooler temperatures. It's not quite as unpleasant to be out working in your landscape.
Yeah.
And as we're driving around, I've seen so many. The Main Street looks good. We've got all our fall displays and stuff. But now is a good time to be thinking about sanitation in the landscape. You know, I get a lot of service calls and a lot of problems with landscape diseases in plants, roses, taxus, all kinds of things.
Right.
And a lot of the things that we see are somewhat preventable. It's time to focus on landscape. Good sanitation practice help reduce disease-causing pathogens. Organisms can survive for months or years on dead plant material. So we kind of, you know, when fall gets here, we kind of, won't mess with that till spring. But
we'll just leave that over there and let it insulate. It's going to get cold, something like that.
Yes, not a good idea at all. And elimination of disease-causing organisms can reduce the need for chemical control and problems the next year. You might not have to call me to figure out what's going on. So it can improve the effectiveness of disease management. And we got a little checklist of things to do here. And most people don't think about these things, Ty. It's just, like we said, it's an out-of-sight, out-of-mind thing. We're not in the landscape as much when it's cooler as we are in the summer enjoying it. So we need to remove diseased plant tissue from infected plants. You know, plants are going to lose certain parts over the years. It's just decline, a stressful year. We've had a drought year, just whatever, either severe winter the winter before. So we're going to have limbs and we're going to have parts that die out. Those need to be removed at this time of year. Prune out any cankers or galls that might be on those, making cuts well below the symptoms, so as far back. And that's one thing I do here is, I'm gonna ruin the shape of my plant. I said, well, if it's that bad, it's time to replace it anyway.
Right.
But in good sanitation, a little at a time instead of letting it get to be a big problem.
But you want to get, if you're going to have to cut something off, you want to get down below that potential diseased area is.
That is correct. And clean any tools each cut between, because we don't know for sure what we're dealing with there. And if you're cutting this plant, and
spread it.
You move to over there. It's just like staff in a hospital. It's
See, don't even think about that.
Yeah, cleanliness is very important. So sanitizing, such as rubbing alcohol or household bleach on your pruning shears. Rake and remove any fallen buds, flowers, twigs, needles, leaves, everything going down that can harbor through the winter, that can harbor any disease that plant might be. Discard all above and below ground portions of a bad plant. So if we do have a plant that dies in the landscape, we need the root ball and everything to come up and get rid of that. And do not come back into that same hole. Somebody said, well, that's perfectly symmetrical with over here. Well, there's a problem with that area why that plant had died to start with, so it's best to avoid that. Okay, so discard all of those. Cut, of course, below your symptoms, well below that. Discard plant material. Any of that tie should be either burned, buried, removed from the landscape, taken to some property out, and disposed of. Do not compost diseased material.
And I think that's what happens sometimes.
That is what happens, and the compost process is kind of complicated, and most folks that try to do that at home do not go through the heat process and go through the turning process to make that go. We have to add water. There has to be a turning process to go for compost to be true compost.
And speaking of that, you've probably got good literature out there on a proper compost,
we do.
don't you?
We do.
Yeah, because that's something I think that, you really have to. I mean, you got to study on how that actually works. It's a chemical process.
It is a chemical process, and the time investment that it takes to get a handful, most people, they think, well, I'll just mound this big old pile up. Well, that's not how that process works. Yes, it's doing
and it'll just work.
Yes. Yeah. So, and when most people hear, oh my gosh, I got to do this, I got to turn this, and I got to add water in dry weather and stuff, it kind of, it's not quite as what it was. I'm just going to go to the store and buy some.
Right. I remember my aunt, you'd go out, and, of course, I always got fishing worms out of it, but it would be, coffee grounds, there'd be a little bit of eggshell, just all that old junk in there. But it's a little bit more scientific than that. And
exercise caution when storing limbs or trunks as firewood. That's another thing.
Yes.
You lose a tree in the landscape, and, hey, I put that on the fireplace this fall, this winter. Be careful of that. Probably not the best idea if that tree had problems when it died. Remove any weeds, including roots, which may serve as an alternate host for pathogens. And when treating infected plants with fungicide, remove infected tissue prior to application. And that's the thing, that fungicide, Ty, is not always a curative. Fungicides work much better as a preventative.
Yeah.
So it's not a cure-all.
Right.
So getting the stress off the plant, getting the things away from it, and then next year starting out. We have a lot of dormant time of the year type of sprays to put a layer of protection on that plant before it even buds out in the spring. That's your first step. And, of course, the Extension office, we've got plenty of information on that, schedules, places where you can buy those chemicals and things, but starts with sanitation in the fall.
Awesome, and those are great tips. If folks are still out there doing that kind of work, and if you have any questions, Shane would be glad to answer them. But you might just stop by out there, get the literature yourself, and kind of work through it if you're curious about it. And then if you need Shane's expertise, he welcomes those calls. But there's a lot of things already printed up that you can read, and
sure is.
and probably not even have to get a call.
That's true, Ty. And the University of Kentucky College of Agriculture Extension Service has a YouTube channel.
Okay.
Where a lot of these topics, our specialists and extension associates have went out to places when they make a farm call like that, or they have a demo.
They just go through it.
They've recorded it. Pruning, I've had lots of people that has used that fruit tree pruning series to help prune their fruit trees through the winter months. So check out that. Just type into YouTube, the University of Kentucky College of Agriculture on YouTube, and it'll come up.
That's great.
Tons of videos on that.
And that's a great resource. I mean, a lot of us, look up old movie lines or music videos or whatever, guitar lessons, but there are some really great information out there from the University of Kentucky. That's good to know. So if you have,
and they're adding those videos weekly,
yeah,
different series. You never know really what's going to pop up. I have seen everything from termite control to mold control in the yard. Just a wealth of information.
And when you were here with that, lots of folks wanted that information. I was battling them myself, so that's good information. So Shane, thank you, man. Always an informative, great program. Again, folks, if you have any questions, always call our UK Extension office about this information. 365-2787 is the number to call. Shane is our agent for Agriculture and Natural Resources. Be glad to help you if he's available. And if he's not available, he will return your call.
That's right. And leave a message.
Leave a message, definitely. And of how, because he will return your call if he is out of office. And he is out of office quite a bit as well. But they're very helpful folks out there. It's a wealth of knowledge. And we appreciate all our agents out there and for what they do for us. And can't thank you enough, my man.
Thank you.
Have a watch the freeze. Enjoy this fall weather. It's here.
I'm ready for it.
And yeah, I am too. It's a nice time of year. So thank you again, and have a great day. And we appreciate what you do for us at the UK Extension office. That's Shane Bogle. He is our agent for Agriculture and Natural Resources at the UK Extension office. Give Shane a call, or any one of the other agents, if you have any questions concerning anything that you might be their area of expertise out at the UK Extension office. 365-2787 is the number to call. It's 8:17. Stick around for Tiger Talk. We've got a split edition today. This has been our extension portion. We'll have representatives from United Way in studio about 8:30, and they'll get us up to date of what's going on with their small business